evening, and welcome to a new episode of Around the Pit. My name is Toffees, bringing you the action here as usual. You can find me at Toffees TV, and the show is brought to you by the good people at Razer, Asus Republic of Gamers, and of course, our patron saints who make the show possible every single day. Pro-Built Systems for putting together the rig that hosts the show. But enough about me, because you're here to see the folks who sit above me. Starting on my left, your right, if I guessed that correctly, is our first guest. You may know her as Reinessa. That's how I know her. Some folks say she's a cosplayer. Some say she is a YouTube host. And a lot of folks, and I actually got into this earlier, Reinessa, some folks said, who's Reinessa? And I said, somebody else went, she's a cosplayer. And I said, she is a cosplayer, but she does a ton more. I know that you cast. I know that you run a show called TLDR that is very helpful. If you miss tournaments, need to catch up on them. So she is joining us here today, and I'm excited to have you on the panel. How are you doing tonight, Reinessa?
I'm doing great. It's my first time here, so we'll see how it goes.
It hopefully will go well, and I'm excited to see what you bring. And afterwards, make sure you remind me to have you tell us where to find TLDR as well as the other stuff you're working on, because I think, again, there's a lot of content out there that folks just don't know about. We got to help scratch each other's backs whenever possible. The second man on the list above me and directly in front of you is Gorgon the Wonder Cow, Mr. Ryan Gerardo, my co-caster on the Collegiate Star Lake, who I believe is going to be coming in Austin here in 2 weeks for DreamHack. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing very well and happy to be here. A little tired after staying up all night for a couple nights to watch Manila, but catch back up on sleep tonight.
So you're not gonna go watch Game of Thrones after this? You're actually gonna go to sleep?
I'm gonna go right, and then I'm gonna go to sleep.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go right to sleep. And to our next guest, the man on the far side, that is Nahaz, Alan Bester Toda. How are you doing? I feel like I introduced everybody else, so I should introduce you and say, this is Nahaz. He's an analyst, and he goes
good.
to events.
I was a lot better before that last pun.
It was good.
Oh boy.
Phooey.
You definitely have the dad humor down. I was.
That's all I got going for me, man. Purple ties and dad humor. By the way, Nahaz, congratulations on the BTS Summit, guys. If you didn't know, Nahaz will be hosting at least part of the coverage. I don't even know how the hosted. It's a very interesting system. We're going to talk about it tonight potentially, but he will be at BTS for the Manila Madness hub that is going to be going on. So I'm excited about seeing all the cool stuff coming out of there. That said, guys, for those of you who may not know the show, who may be new to it, the rules are simple. Anybody can talk anytime they want. If they say something that I deem good, they get a point. If they say something that I deem boneheaded, they lose a point. Every topic has 8 or more minutes. It's based on Roche, so sometimes we give a little bit of leniency since he's never the most dependable of characters in the game. However, if you hear this sound, it means that the topic is over and we're moving on to the next one. This way we have a chance to talk about more than just one thing sometimes. Finally, the other thing you need to know is that every player gets one soapbox at any point in the game. They can call for it, everyone else gets muted, and they get 1 minute to say whatever they damn well please, and they can earn points during this time. At the end, the player with the most points wins the Aegis, or Aegis, depending on how you choose to pronounce it. I guess there's a correct way. I don't really seem to know what it is. Whoever gets the Aegis gets a chance to come back anytime that they want to, as well as earns themselves one additional soapbox to talk about just about anything, whether it's politics, Dota, or otherwise. We're just going to listen. That said, let's get right into the show. Any questions from you guys?
And it's Aegis because Ice Frog said so.
Did he? Because I looked it up and it said Aegis, and I got so confused because Gorgon calls it Aegis.
Supposedly the
it's a real word
in the real world, or if it's a made-up thing that Ice Frog created, because it is a real word in the real world.
If Ice Frog creates it, it is law. Hire me, Valve. All right, let's start this thing. Let's do it. Right? I just thought it was fun. All right. First topic up is the Thrilla in Manila. Guys, ESL 1 ended today. Big ups to Wings who took it home. But before we talk about the teams, let's talk about what I think was an incredible event that gave me, if WCA scared the hell out of me for Shanghai, Manila has made me hyped for the next major. What'd you guys think?
Absolutely unbelievable. And I want to give ESL a lot of credit for being willing to take risks. I mean, holding an event in Manila in the first place, this is easily the biggest Dota event that's ever been in SEA, the only major premier land that they've had. And they took a lot of risks with the broadcast. They had the stage host, which is something that worked wonderfully well that could have been completely cringe. They had I don't even know what those things are called that everybody was wearing. Right. They had the TriCast. I mean, I really do give ESL a lot of credit, particularly because the Dota 2 community can be incredibly punishing to new things, especially if they're not totally polished right out of the gate. I think ESL took a lot of risks, and they almost all of them paid off.
I think to ESL's credit also, the event's changed a lot since they hired Hotbid. So we saw at ESL New York, I mean, the PBD Salt picture, and then at this ESL, the Totoro pillow for Envy, you know, the traditional shirts like you talked about. That you can kind of see, and he has a really good understanding of the community, so you can sort of see his touch and how ESL has changed, and it gives us that connection with the pro players that we as viewers really crave, and then it also gives the years and years of experience in production that we come to expect from ESL. So I think that marrying of the two made the event really excellent.
Let me ask you this. We can probably agree, right? This was a more casual in a lot of ways than we've seen in other events. Would this be okay at every event?
Well, I just want to piggyback a little on what Reinessa was saying, in that I feel like they hit a really nice striking balance at this specific event between catering to the community and what the community wants and giving them their healthy dosage of memery in addition to nice content, but in a way that is professional enough that if you did not know what Dota was and you were watching this event with a friend who did like Dota, you wouldn't be scared off, right?
True.
It wasn't like gamers in a lounge in a house like the Summit, which is awesome. I like the Summit, but that isn't going to attract a wider berth of potential viewers, whereas something like ESL 1 Manila really hit that balance very well, I think.
Okay. I don't know about it. I mean, I think that the big thing with ESL is that they understand that people don't want to watch the same tournament over and over. And I've actually talked to them quite a bit about this. You know, there were a number of people. You know, I obviously was not invited to ESL 1 Manila. That's actually something that we had discussed going way back. That, you know, the tone that they were going for with the event was a little bit different, and that's totally fine. But I really like that. And as far as Ken goes, as Hotbed goes, I actually thought that this was the first event where he really like just hit his stride in terms of the production and in terms of the choreography. I think the focus on banter in a lot of these panels is something that drives me absolutely crazy, but it really worked this time. I mean, it wasn't a perfect event. There were certainly, there certainly were some problems, but I thought on balance, they took a lot of chances with it, and most of them just came up aces.
So along the line of chances, I think that I do want to say, we talked about the stage host a little bit. He's a comedian in the Philippines, from what I understand. And honestly, so the Swindle Bells, I think, is a good interview to sort of point at. We all saw the memes of him hugging players in the crowd. And it literally started out, I, as you all know, love doing interviews. And I sat there and said, what the hell is going on right now? And then it was turned into probably, I think, one thing that will remain Dota Gold for a very long time. My question is that the future, or is that going to replace Casey at major events, or do you think that we're going to see this sort of kept to the side as sort of a fun thing that sets ESL 1 apart?
Just like there are different play styles for players of different regions and different times, there are different production styles for different events in different regions at different times. I don't think we're ever going to see an event that we say, oh, this is going to completely change the way all events in the future are run. As Nahaz was saying, right, they had a very specific sense of how they wanted to change this event up. And ESL, like most coordinators of events, realize that people don't want to see the same event every single time they turn on Twitch. So the international is a specific thing. As long as fan favorites like Casey want to come out and entertain the crowd, I don't imagine that we're going to see something happen at an ESL that changes, that usurps the way the internationals run.
But it's not even a matter of that. People act as if there's like one optimal way to run a Dota 2 tournament.
Right.
It's rule number one. This isn't rocket science. It's know your audience. I mean, you're having a TI in Seattle. Casey is part of the Seattle landscape. She's a way to tie the event to the location. And you know, what they did in so much of what they did in Manila was the same thing. It was a way to meaningfully tie the event to the location. It was a way for the people on the stream to know, hey, this is an event that's in a place. It's not just some generic LAN tournament. I think both are actually accomplishing. I think both are much closer to accomplishing the same things than they are different.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. They don't seem different. It doesn't seem like hiring a comedian in Manila is different than hiring Casey in Seattle. I mean, we've seen her interviews. They're cringe. I mean, that's the entertainment part. I mean, when she does weird timber saw noises or walks around with Jeremy Lin, I mean, she's doing the same thing as the host in Manila when he was like, "Oh, it's a tiny." When he's announcing the cosplay competition. I mean, there's still the cringe aspect, which we find remarkably entertaining. Now, where one is, you know, a sports news trained person and another is a comedian, it is still accomplishing the same goal.
I do like how events, ESL Manila is not the only event to do this, but it is one in a long chain of events that we are starting to see over maybe the last 12 months or so, I would say, really start to see personalities who are involved in these tournaments really start to understand that they are in a career of entertainment. Whereas I feel like before that, some personalities really felt like they were entertainers or really projected themselves as entertainers, and some personalities really projected themselves as Dota people. And now I feel like when I watch,
so are you talking about? I'm not clear on what you're saying here. Are you talking about trying to appeal to a wider audience, or
just that when I watch panels now, right? When I watch guys like Purge and Blitz and Toby all talking about the game, they seem to be getting better at communicating their points. They seem to be better at speaking to an audience. They seem to be better at those aspects of the entertainment industry that you would normally get if you were pulling in entertainers the way that professionals.
I'm actually going to give you multiple extra points here because I think that if you go back, and I think that if you watch, say, Merlini is a great example of an analyst who has really embraced the idea that this is a show in addition to talking about Dota. And
that's but come on, that's worth points. Like look, this is
he made the point. He made the point.
The scene is growing up. And it's growing up in a lot of ways that we'll talk about in different aspects of the show tonight. But yeah, people are getting better because we've had practice.
That's true.
Right. And we have
incentive.
Yeah. Hey! I mean, this is not something that's worth multiple points anyway.
So that said, let me ask you about the other side of ESL Manila. It wasn't all roses and came up smelling great. There were definitely some issues on day one going into day two. Did they give you the same worry? I mean, there was audio issues, there was sound issues the same way that we saw in Shanghai. Did they handle it correctly? And why are people less angry about it than they were at the start of Shanghai?
ESL gave us information.
Amen.
Hey!
Amen.
Shanghai swept it under the rug. Didn't tell us anything. I mean, Bonnie was our source of information. You know, the translator that had 80,000 different jobs piled on top of her was the only one we heard anything from. And ESL was saying, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue. They hide nothing. It's complete transparency that we know of. And they do their best to fix it.
One of the first conversations I had with James Lampkin, he was like, you know what? One of the most important things that we did when he and Red Eye were working for ESL and were talking about and designing shows is put the damn match countdown timer on. He felt like that in and of itself was the most significant, was among or the most significant production innovation that they've done, just because it's about keeping the viewers informed.
Do you think, though, let me ask you this, though. Is that because not only has production embraced a more professional Dota, but the players and the teams have too? I mean, I think one of the reasons you didn't see timers a year and a half ago is you couldn't depend on a team to be ready to play when the timer hit 0. At the same token,
at a LAN,
partly about these events have realized that they need to have the professional cat herders.
Right, that's true too.
Right. Okay. I mean, teams are. We have a long way to go in that respect, and I feel like I can say this. I sing the praises of our players more than just about anybody out there, but we still do have a ways to go in terms of establishing standards for professionalism, standards for media interaction, but that will come.
Mm-hmm. In time. Yeah. I think they're doing a lot better, though. And, I mean, I think a great example, and it was that moment where Swindles was hugging the crowd, is I think that a while back ago, that might have been something that a player couldn't have even sort of ran with. And he did a great job of saying, yeah, I'm just going to go with this. I messaged his manager and said, hey, was that a pre-planned bit? Did Swindles know this was coming? And Beef said, no, this was all off the cuff. He literally had no idea. And he sat back and said, all right, well, let's fucking roll with it. Let's start hugging kids. And it worked out.
Yeah, Swindles is an interesting example because he is a Dota player that does seem to embrace the idea that players too are a form of entertainer, and he understands that he is a personality, right? That's not,
and he's understood it,
and all players embrace.
That's what I have been so impressed with him for a long time, that he understood that, like, right away, coming over from Han, and understood right away that the Dota community was going to be much higher, much brighter spotlight, and really embrace that role.
But there's that stratification in anything. I mean, you're going to have someone like Swindles who's willing to make that change, and then you're going to have other.
You're going to use Jackie as the other.
we're not touching that. But you have other players who aren't going to do that. And if you look at any sport where these people have, even greater profiles, there are some who are going to, expose their life to the public much more and be more willing to share. And then you're going to have ones who are more private. So the nice thing about Dota is that players are always willing to interact with fans. I've never seen an instance in which they're not, personally. And I mean, Swindles above and beyond because he is charismatic and it's easy for him. And, some players that's not going to happen. So that's always been a nice aspect of the scene.
Yeah, that is a very cogent point, and it's one of the things where if you go to LAN events, it's like a totally different experience because people really are eager to interact. They want to. Players like fans by and large. It's the problem is we don't yet have the infrastructure that. Players don't yet understand that part of interacting with fans is also interacting with people that cover. Yes,
press,
and also,
and that's something that we really do need to work on.
Players have not been given a lot of reason. They have not been given a lot of incentive in order to involve themselves with the press like that.
Well, there's no incentive. Right. That's the problem is that when you sign a contract to play Major League Baseball, or when you sign a contract to play National Football League football, that's in your contract. That is enforced by the teams and by the commissioner's office that you make yourself available to press at certain points.
But it's in your contract because it increases your value to the team because they can market you and they can use you in order to sell tickets. They can use that's what I'm saying. That exists in Dota too. Bigger Dota names
it doesn't
have a value to teams.
It doesn't because
it isn't being.
Players have nothing forcing them to
recognition.
Right. Or organizations by and large have very, I won't say very little, but very uneven leverage.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well, in addition to that, there's also think about how Dota functions as far as the like the esports, our little bubble of people who all know each other and are friends with each other. Players will talk to someone that another player has talked to. Players will, if you can get into that network, you're gold. But the problem with a lot of press is there's a lot of new organizations popping up. There's a lot of new people who want to get into press and maybe highly talented and have a great story that they're building in their head, maybe. But players have no idea if this is press that's going to benefit them or if this is someone who's going to have.
So here's this question.
When I walked around at ESL New York, for the story I tell, when I walked around at ESL New York, the .P guys, the Defense of the Patience guys were there. And I literally walked around for 15, 20 minutes in one of the whatever room it was, saying, hey, look, those guys over there, they're safe. If you talk to them, they're not out to promote themselves at your expense. They're out to introduce you to an audience that a lot of other coverage doesn't reach, and it's taken a while, but they've finally hit really big recently.
And it sounds honestly like some of the problem is that the press is growing, right? That right now some organizations you book, like what Reinessa said, talking to players and getting to know them and saying, "Will you come on the show?" versus other organizations where you go through a press secretary or a management system to get to players. And
it's just a matter of infrastructure.
Right. You don't go to an NFL player and say, "Hey, would you like to come on my show?" You go to an NFL press person or PR rep who then goes to the NFL person and says, "We trust this journalist. Go talk to them."
And then they also say you have to go talk to them.
We trust them. You have to do this.
It's exclusively a problem with new press being there. It is a problem with the infrastructure as a whole, and also the lack of teams creating a value for dealing with the press in their players, contractually or otherwise. And with this very boys club sort of way that esports work that Reinessa was going on, because I have written for just about every major press organization. And I have gone to teams and been like, hey, I'm writing for Join Dota. Can I get an interview? And really had to hound people in order to get there. Despite the fact that I've written over 100 articles, right, on every major press.
Yeah, but that has a lot to do with just a lot of the major brands that you would think would be really good,
right, are not. They don't have that.
All right, you know what? We beat the hell out of this horse, and we've been through this horse before. Yep. Long story short, changes will happen as other changes come along the way. That said, I want to keep the Thrilla in Manila topic up, but restart the clock because I want to talk about the other side. We talked about production. There were some struggles, but by and far communication. The experience was great. Let's talk about the teams and the gameplay that we saw, because there were upsets, there were Cinderella stories, there were meta changes to a certain extent. It was a really great tournament. What did you guys think?
I was okay. I'll take it.
I was having Nahaz take the first word. I'm just waiting.
We're prepared for that.
Wow. All right. I obviously I was actually quite a bit surprised. I said before the Starladder Invitational that I thought that was one of the more wide open fields that I'd seen in a Dota 2 tournament in a long time. I didn't necessarily think that on paper ESL 1 Manila was going to be that wide open. Actually, it's funny, despite everybody talking about Wings today, the team that I think played the highest level Dota over the weekend and impressed me the most was Fnatic. I thought Fnatic played extraordinarily well. I think if you give them that game 2 against Wings in their series today when they were up 1-0 in a best of 3, I think if you give them that same draft against the same team with their same heroes, you give them that 10 more times, they win 7 of those games. I think they should have won that game. And I think that if they won that game, they might have won obviously they might have won.
You say they. Do you mean they as all 5, or do you specifically mean that 1-star player who came to JD?
DJ.
Oh, Chris.
I got selected for a second. Or do you mean he is this factor that's taking the team to the next level? Like, am I curious?
No. It is not like, look, he's the player of the tournament. Let's not get me wrong, but it is not all about him. Like 3-4-3. 3-4-3 has played great. They played a great vision game. If you look at their warding, if you look at their push timings, they're playing really good Dota. And they're playing it's almost like they played well at Shanghai, but it's almost like they also after Shanghai looked at what MVP were doing well and then did that too.
There's something, this patch, I mean, we saw it at TI4, it was horrible, but this patch is reminiscent of that a little bit. It's not Deathball, but it is so team fight, kill, work together oriented. You can't have the 4 protect 1 as often. You can't have things like that. So teams that it sounds corny, teams that are friends, teams that like each other, teams that are used to each other almost, seem to have a significantly better chance at doing well just because everything is so reliant on just your synergy together. So maybe when we see teams that have had changes recently, or you have brand new teams, something like Empire, that are really, really excited with a lot of passion ready to go, you see a much higher performance level from them, specifically in this patch because of how the playstyle works.
Well, communication has been increasingly the dominant factor in successful gameplay over the last several years. And I mean, Team Empire boot camp just before this event, and we saw an immense rise in their performance, in their overall communication. They were really working together extremely well.
It's not just communication. I think it's a lot of things. I really think that Dota, I've talked about this on panels a lot, so I'm not going to beat the dead horse, but Dota's grown up. And Dota has couple years ago, a year ago even, it was the landscape had a lot in common with college basketball. I think it actually has a lot in common with the NFL right now, in terms of there are a lot of talented players, there are a lot of talented teams. Teams are and players are looking for very small informational advantages and then just leverage the hell out of them. And it really is like just you could honestly tell from just Fanatics drafting and their warding that like it's been a while since I've seen any team improve this much in a short period of time.
Fair.
Well, on top of that, I think we've also seen teams prioritizing. I mean, you're talking about information and prep going into a game. And then think about once you're in the game, the Bat Riders, the Beastmasters, the Bounty Hunters, all those vision advantages, it really seemed like,
broken.
yeah, it's any team that could see the other team won the game. I mean, the team fights are so important. The AoE bounty golds are so ridiculous in this patch that...
You want to get into that?
I
mean, I've only been saying that for a year and a half.
Yeah, vision has been the primary motivator for draft meta in a lot of senses for 8 or 9 months at least. And that, once again, it comes down to finding those incremental advantages and being able to leverage them in the game, but also the ability to, I want to harp back on this communication point, because a lot of teams would, in the past, even very good teams, would find those small informational advantages and they would not collapse together in a way to utilize.
No, but it's the extent to which they're able to leverage them.
Well, let me rephrase this question then. I want to put and Gorgon's harping on this because he knows that I feel very strongly in a lot of ways about communication in the game, I think, because we spend so much time working together. But do you think the fact that, and I think we can all, you might not agree completely, but I think you can sort of see this, that Dota has moved far more towards an any given Sunday. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, you knew who was going to win. Now it's like, honestly, I don't know. Do you think this new any given Sunday style of Dota has really increased how important synergy and communication is in terms of a team's preparation?
Of course. And then on top of that, throw in the roster locks too. I mean, think of how much pressure that is on a team that they know that they're stuck with this roster for 6 months. Like so they know they have to like each other and they know they have to work together because of the way that Dota is changing, because there's so many more people that can come after you. I mean, it's not the days of Na'Vi and Alliance where you know that they're going to be in a grand finals against each other. I mean, you have to worry about everyone. That's stressful.
That's true.
It really highlights preparation, and that's again, I think that's, I feel like we are underselling Wings a little bit. Like, they played great Dota and they played, but it also shows to me they're a team that if you're not, I mean, Scant's been saying this forever, I give him a ton of credit, that if you're not ready for what they do, if you haven't played specifically for them, it's like playing Syracuse in college basketball. Like, you've got to put a fair amount of prep into playing against that particular zone defense.
Right.
And if you're not prepared to play Wings, you easily find yourself at a disadvantage.
Wings is one of these teams that you watch them play and they were very effective, and they've been running the rounds for their peers in China for a while, right? But they are one of those teams that you go into the event as a more established squad. You're not going to pay as much attention to them because they are not very well known, if known at all, outside of China prior to this event.
I mean, they 3-0'd Vici Gaming Reborn to get to that was that Epicenter?
It was. It might have been this event actually for the qualifier.
For the qualifier, it was this event. They 3-0'd Vici Gaming Reborn to get into this event. So anybody like, that's the thing. Anybody that was.
But if you're running limited on time,
looked at that and what VGR did at Starladder.
Right, but if you're running limited on time, right, and you're, say, Fnatic, and you're going in, and you've got New Secret with Arteezy, you've got Complexity Gaming that you went up against, right? You've got 4 teams that are expected to go to the next major by direct invite. And
there is also the issue, and this is maybe something that we'll get. This is actually something I was a little disappointed that's not on the topic list, but there's the issue that a lot of the top teams aren't playing. And when they are playing, I don't know that they're playing their best Dota.
I agree.
And I think that is a huge, if I got a vote, that would be one of the topics, because I think that is a huge issue right now in the scene that we absolutely have to address.
That the top teams aren't looking as crisp as they should or used to.
The fact that the top teams aren't playing, the fact that in the month following the Shanghai Major, 4 out of the top 8 teams played 3 matches or less. Yeah. Whereas in CS:GO, when you have this great major in Columbus, 5 out of the top 8 teams were in action in multiple online league matches within 7 days of the event.
And that's this is how you comparison to even 2013, where Alliance got super huge on the back of the fact that they were playing like 3 matches a day.
Yeah.
Right. These are guys that had to intentionally lose games because they needed the time to get to their next game.
And that's how you grow a fan base, especially in the West. Western fans, NA fans want to see top teams play. They say, I watched Shanghai, Secret won, I'm a Secret fan. Where's my Secret games?
Well, on top of that, I mean, it kind of ruins the competitiveness as well. We're talking about preparation. We're talking about you're going into a big event and you need to know your opponents. And okay, sure, if you're an NA team, yeah, you've probably scrimmed EG. But if you're coming from China, you don't have replays to look at. You don't know what their patterns are. You don't know when they smoke or Roche or anything like that. No, so sorry. What I'm saying is that by EG not playing, it's ruining the fairness of.
I see. You're saying they get a systemic advantage because they're not in public matches.
So teams choosing not to play is probably partially because that they don't want to put a big target on their back.
But is that working?
It's not about that. It's not partially. It is. They have a disincentive to play.
Right.
They have a huge disincentive to play. Like, why the hell would EG?
Why they have a guaranteed invite? I mean, they know that TI champions, top 3 at the majors. They know they're invited. Why paint a target on their back?
I mean, in terms of like, you can make a cogent argument that in terms of expected tournament winnings, they would be hurting themselves by playing in matches right now.
Right, and unlike most
stupid,
EG are good enough and well coordinated enough that they can go in having not played a lot of ticketed matches, having only done scrims, and still do very well.
But can you say that now with
play fewer ticketed matches? They do worse.
I mean, and that's the question though. Is like, from what we've seen, and I think we've seen enough top teams not playing in tournaments that then show up at a tournament and don't do very well. Is this strategy working?
Well, my actual question would be, well, yes, actually. I mean, look at Secret. have they done well at a non-Valve event since the early fall? I mean, but they show up at Valve events. So,
that's $3 million
well
at a non-Valve event.
ESL1 Manila is 250,000. So
that's
the thing. That's what I worry about, right? I mean, when Valve announced this, one of their big things was, well, we don't want third-party events to fall by the wayside, but that's exactly what's happened for a number of reasons.
So let me ask you this.
I could do a whole show
let me ask you this then. So when we looked at ESL1, we've got what was the prize pool? 200,000, right? Was that the final? 250K. So in this tournament, we've got Secret, one of the top teams in the world, who has an insane earnings list if you look at their last year and their projected year. Because of the fact that they don't need to win in the same way that Wings needs to win to pay the bills, do you think Secret comes into tournaments like this, or these top teams come in and just say, we're going to go have fun, or we're going to try different strategies?
Absolutely not. Okay. These guys want to win. Think about those egos. They work their ass off to win.
I don't think it's a case that they don't want to win, or they're just like, oh, we'll just have fun and screw around. I think it's a case of they don't try as hard, just on even if it's an unconscious level.
No.
Like honestly, this is one thing.
Hold on. Let me back this up, right? Every TI winner drops off the face of the earth after TI. Right?
There's a giant target on their back. There's new patches.
Oh my lord,
this is something that we've literally
the
heard
biggest
like Alliance
cause and effect I've ever seen. Yeah, because they kick AUI and they spend 9 months playing RPGs. I mean, look,
I'm not saying that it's to that degree, but when you come into a smaller event, like literally the analogy that a TI winner used was when you win the World Cup, you don't care as much about it. It's hard to motivate yourself to care as much.
Look,
that might last for a month, but they want to win.
this is
If
one of my
it's
biggest-
$1,000 or
Okay.
$1 million, they want to. It's not about the money for these guys.
These guys
Nobody's
are
saying that it's about the money. I'm not
okay?
saying that they're making.
This is this is what you guys people don't understand. I won't say you guys because I think Nessa at least understands perfectly well. This is their careers, man. They take pride in being good at their jobs like all of us do.
Yeah, but everybody has days and times where they do worse at their job because of unconscious, non-deliberate factors. That's
Fine, but that doesn't mean that they're coming in saying,
nobody said that.
That
Exactly what I
That
did.
could be because of pressure, though. I mean, think about the pressure that you're going through, and you feel like you have to constantly be amazing. And then we're just talking about how, I don't remember what the phrase you used was, but basically all the teams are equal at this point. There's no huge, power up at the top. Everybody's equal. Everybody can be turned over. That's a lot of pressure. You can't perform at that level constantly.
That's what I'm trying to say. I did not say that they come in. I literally said I am not saying that they're coming in and not caring or trying less hard. What I'm saying is that there are unconscious and human psychological factors that impact teams, and the structure of events where some events have greater motivating factors impacts that.
All right. I think we got a pretty good discussion going on that one. And I see where Gorgon's coming from. I see where everybody else is as well. I think that we got to remember, especially this generation of pros plays the game. A lot of them started because they love the game. Maybe the next generation might see some issues in terms of money balance versus time played, but I feel like every pro I talk to, their mentality is, I want to win because I want to prove that I'm the best goddamn Dota player in the world. And that's been something that I think is really cool. All right, let's move on to the next topic. 6.86 balance patch, etc. Do you think the patch is coming? When's it going to happen? Is it going to completely fuck over teams in the open? Do you think the meta changed at all in Manila? Do you think it's really death ball, or do you think it's just the mechanics of the game right now? Let's talk 6.86.
It's definitely not death.
holy.
What do we got? Let's talk about 8.6. Go.
All right. So, wait, are we talking about 8.6 or are we talking about 8.7?
You can talk about both, buddy.
All right. I think that small, and Nahaz and I have been talking about this a lot on Twitter over the last week. I think that small incremental patch change should come very soon. I would like to see that come after the qualifiers.
It needs to come before the qualifiers. If you're qualifying teams for an event, they're going to plan another patch. Like, you need to give that patch out now, or
no.
playstyle changes massively, though.
You cannot release anything. We have 4 days to go until open qualifiers. You cannot release anything but the most minor tweak right now. It would be grossly unfair.
Well, he said minor tweaks. He's not saying a big patch. So I'm saying if it's going to be small changes, maybe, Invoker loses his move speed.
But then you call it 687. Like, I mean, I do have a great deal of sympathy. There was obviously been tons of threads on Reddit, as there always are, but there was one big one the other day. And I do have a lot of sympathy for people that want the pub meta to change. Like, people are bored. People want like patches, at least especially the last few, have been to pub Dota like DLC for Dota, right? It's like, okay, let's go play with Glimmer Capes, awesome, right? But no, the pro meta is in a very good place. Anybody that thinks that there's not a hell of a lot of innovation left on the table in 686 at the pro level is not paying attention.
I think we've seen that at tournaments.
Yeah.
I think we've really seen every single tournament has had a different meta. That's not true of every patch. That's very much not true. Yep. And it feels like almost all, I actually don't want a patch. I think it's amazing. I just think that if there's going to be a patch and it's going to be the one played in Manila, you need to consider that it comes out before the invites, because some teams can be very strong on a patch and then completely lose it when you change it.
As the great Austin Powers once said, that train has sailed. No, if you're going to release that patch, the time was 2 weeks ago. They released 685, I think. What was it, like 2 weeks before Frankfurt Open qualifiers? That I thought was cutting it a little bit close. I think now it would be ludicrous. I think the two most likely scenarios are for the patch to come out right after the main regional qualifiers have concluded, so May 8th to 10th, somewhere in that range, or that you'll see the patch after the major itself.
I think I agree with you. Well, I do definitely agree with you that there's a lot of life left on this patch. But if this patch goes all the way to the end of the next major, my concern is that the ceiling is becoming too rigid. In that, like, we've seen a lot of moving around in the meta for the mid-range heroes, and we are not seeing very much mobility for the very top heroes. And that's something that...
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I mean that when you look at every premier event of this patch, you're seeing less and less mobility for heroes to go from a middle-ranged hero, something that's picked maybe like 25% to 30%.
No, that's completely distorted by the fact that we have like 3 ridiculous heroes at the maybe between
we only
3 and 5 ridiculous heroes at the very top.
No.
Like Invoker, Enchantress, and
patch,
Beastmaster are straight
have
up
not had that in the entire patch though. That hasn't been the case the whole patch. It is a gradual process that's happening.
Well, what we saw in Manila, though, was that there were heroes that were really strong for the whole patch, and then all of a sudden in Manila, people were ignoring them. I mean, where did Doom come from, and where did Void go? So we've still seen quite a bit of change.
Void was on the way out way before. Right. I mean, honestly, it actually, a lot of it is encapsulated by a conversation I had with OG on the way to the hotel at Starlighter. Was basically, they were like, look, we came into Shanghai thinking that there was one way to play this patch, and a lot of other teams did, and we were wrong.
Right. Yeah.
You definitely got that vibe at Shanghai.
All I'm saying is that in past patches, when you look at those numbers, when you start to get the same couple of heroes at multiple events, that's a sign that meta is starting to seize up. And that does not necessarily mean that it will always be that way. And I do agree that there's a lot of options on the table this patch that teams did not necessarily expect. And so we might see that pattern regress.
People are focusing way too much on individual heroes. Like you look at a hero like Doom, and you're seeing Doom used in a lot of different ways. You're seeing Doom used in early roaming now. He's a very good pressure hero. Obviously has a lot of viability in late game situations. Like I have less of a problem. Yes, the single biggest balance things. Invoker's Forge Spirits need to have way less HP. His maybe scaling back his early level spells. Enchantress Untouchable attack speed debuff needs to be cut way big. Beastmaster's Hawk sight vision needs to be nerfed, and the cooldown needs to be increased on the Hawk, not on the Boar. And I think if you want to, we can get into the fact that the mid meta has become kind of boring, but there are really good reasons for that.
I will say that Doom, it's not like he came out of nowhere. He's been on a steady rise for about 10 weeks. Now, that's not in terms of all professional Dota, right? And he once again, he did not rise up to that upper echelon. You're starting to see the very top 4 or 5 heroes. He rose up, overall for the last 2 weeks, he's got like a 40% pick rate.
You're drunk. Well, let me. I surprisingly don't have the stats for the tournament in front of me, but he was.
Right. Yes. He was bigger than he had been in the past, but
bigger than he had been in the past.
Right. He was
this patch, not last patch.
This patch. Right.
He was the third.
Not last patch.
He was in the top 3 most picked in ban heroes at both Starlighter and at ESL 1 Manila.
All right, so after all that, we've established that Doom has moved around in his pick standard. Let me. Okay, go ahead, Reinessa. I think you've got something you've been waiting on.
Something I was thinking.
Top 3, he was picked 12 times at Starlighter. I've got it up on me right now. That's
at ESL 1 Manila. He was picked 17 times, banned 11 times. Most picked and banned, I said.
Reinessa.
I think that to Gorgon's point about the top tier heroes, I disagree a little bit as far as the staleness, because if we want to talk about the rise of Doom and say that he's rising potentially, I think that there's a lot of ways to still combat them. So especially what we saw at ESL, so we talk about vision being a huge thing. One team gets a bat rider, one team gets a bounty hunter. And so it's not, vision is completely overpowered, but teams are working around it and fighting against each other that way. And as far as Doom goes, this is something I'd love to know the stats on. I'd like to know if BKB piercing disables increase at LANs as compared to online games, because I always feel like I notice Doom's, Bat Riders, etc. really go up in pick rate at a LAN when that lockdown becomes even more important and your games have much higher stakes.
The answer to your question would, at least in the recent history, would be yes, but it's with those particular heroes, it's about a lot more than the BKB piercing disables.
That's a good answer. Let me ask you guys this, and I'm gonna swing us a little bit on this topic. How much do you think, from your experience watching Valve, you guys have all played this game for a very long time, that Valve puts a premium on the pro experience or the pub experience? Because it seems
I think
like
they do
this
a very
patch.
good job of balancing both.
Well, it seems
I
like
would
we've
agree
hit a
with that
critical
100%.
point on this patch where we're looking at saying for the pro experience, they're going to have to push this out till after the major. But if you go to any forum, and I'm not just talking Reddit, if you talk to any players, if I talk to my friends who I play with, they're ready for a change. Do you think that Valve is willing to say we're going to hold off on it even though you guys all want it because it helps the pro scene not to?
They're
I
going
think
to hold off on it until it's ready.
Okay.
And then they're going to try to find the best window to put it out. And
I think Valve
That's it.
values the pros. I think
I
they.
think they value. I know for a fact they value both.
right. They have to.
I'm not saying they don't value both. I'm saying I think maybe it's like a 60-40
Okay.
kind of thing, not a 50-50. I think they would shift it towards the competitive scene
Look,
just a little bit.
I've had, this is the one thing, like it was at both events, but particularly at TI4, since I wasn't I was kind of there as a spectator. I ended up having a pretty lengthy conversation with a couple of the big beta guys, and they still call them beta testers even though they're balance guys now or whatever. But the point is, that was the very first thing out of their mouths was, look, that's why our job is hard, that we can't. The problem of balancing pro games versus balancing pub matches is not separable.
Gotcha.
They're not separate discussions. We have to have solutions that address both simultaneously. And I think there are ways you can release some crazy items that are not efficient but are kind of fun. You know, obviously there's always the possibility that something gets exploited or broken. But I mean, I think that there are things that they can do. And I do think that they need to pay some lip service to a lot of people that feel that pub games are getting kind of boring. I don't have a problem with that. But I think that especially in the first iteration of the major system, and especially given that you've waited this long to do it, that you got to stay the course at the top of the mountain.
If your question is, do they have a patch ready now that they're not releasing for an extended period of time to benefit pros?
Mhm.
I have to believe that the answer to that is no. If your question is, oh, they'll have a patch ready and then they're going to try to fit it into a relevant time for pro gaming as well to not disrupt that scene, then the answer has to be obviously yes, right?
I will say only that if I've learned one thing in this whole freaking weird hobby, it's that with Valve, nothing is ever obvious.
That's fair.
Seriously, like you just never know.
Well, something that I noticed as someone who started in beta, and everybody, a ton of people started in beta. That's a huge part of, especially the Reddit community. Remember how frequently things changed in beta? I mean, we had patches constantly. We had changes all of the time. And since the game's been released, all of the way, it has been a little more stable. So I almost feel like pubs get a little bored because we're spoiled and we're used to things changing a little more rapidly.
It's funny,
I don't know, because a lot of the player community now is not old beta.
I understand.
Well, what she's saying is the
talking about
vocal
the
people.
Reddit community.
No, the point though, Nessa's point is still valid, but I also think you have to look at it as the last couple of patches have just been, when they've come, have just been massive.
Right.
I mean, we've seen items introduced that change hero attack and cast ranges, that give bonuses to spell damage, and that's like that. I mean, that's been one of the holy grails for a long time, that we're not going to be low, guys, that people would have told you that we're never going to see. So I actually don't think if you look at like items or hero changes per unit time, I actually don't know that it's been that slow. It's just that people.
Well, it's exciting to get those huge changes.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
We're used to a certain pattern, right?
It's
This
also
is the time
terrifying.
of year where you would expect a patch. And historically, you would expect a patch that would then be shifted into the international.
That's true.
And we're just not, people are just used to what there is and want something new. I don't think that's unreasonable. I have the sense of I'm weird in that I don't care about how this patch has impacted my pubs.
Points for being
I
weird.
would like to see a small balance changes because of how I see it impacting pro games. So I'm like the opposite of everybody else
I like my pubs.
Yeah, I think my pubs are fine for the most part.
I think we've discussed that topic pretty well. I have a couple topics I want to go through, and I'm going to put the 8-minute clock up, but I want to go quickly
through.
Get
to rant about AOE bounties and shit. Oh man, I'm so bummed.
I mean, you still have soapboxes. I know you like to save it to the very end, just in case. But
you have to strategically on this show. But anyway,
it's all about strategy. All right, so the next couple, what I want to do is we're going to put the 8 minutes up, but there's a good chance they won't run the whole course. These are things that have been happening in the community lately that I think are definitely worth mentioning. So we'll do sort of a rundown here. One thing I want to hear from you guys and hear maybe your opinions is you brought up Reddit a few minutes ago about how it's a big part of our community. Love it, hate it, need it, don't need it. However you feel about it, Reddit is a reality. It's here to stay. The lead moderator, who's been with it for a very long time, Reaver Zai, just announced his retirement. Hellspawn, I think his Hellspawn Lord is the full name, is stepping up to take over. In this transition time, with a new leader coming up in Reddit, new mods presumably being hired, what would you guys like to see in the future of Reddit? Are there changes you want to see, or do you think it's good as is?
I would like to see Reddit follow its own rules, personally.
And what do you mean by this?
Yeah. Okay, so let's dial back a bit to something that clearly I was very connected to, all of the Ritsu drama. All of those things that had absolutely nothing to really do with Dota. Their rules, no dragging someone through the mud, no personal vendettas, no campaigns against people. Yeah, and you can go on and on. Someone posts a picture on Twitter and it ends up on Reddit just because it's something a pro is doing. It's all of those things that make me irritated.
But that's the
those really rules on Reddit?
That's
those are read the rules. No, read the rules on the Dota subreddit.
They are rules, but they are rules on the Dota subreddit, and some of the things that she's referenced are site-wide rules, and you do have global mods step in occasionally. But the fact is, the extent to which those rules are actually it's like, federal law versus state law in the U.S. when you talk about shit. The extent to which things are actually enforced is the question, not what the laws say. And I mean, we are far from the worst subreddit out there. When you look at some of the crazy shit that happens on the LOL subreddit with people getting banned for saying bad things about Riot, like, I mean, come on,
that's too far.
Reddit is what it is, and I think. I actually feel that our Dota 2 has gotten better in the recent past, and I feel most of the problems that people cite with Reddit are not problems with Reddit.
Right.
The fact that Reddit was never designed to be the major communication hub for our community.
Right.
Or any community.
Right. That's just
not what it's for.
Right.
And also, it's like a private organization. It's not a public square. People act as though they have a right on Reddit to free speech and these things. It is not.
People don't know what free
space. It's a digital space that people treat publicly. Those are
90% of the usages of the term free speech on the internet are by people who do not understand what free speech is. Yep.
Yeah, that's good. That's quality.
Yeah, but it's a great term to go for. But you made a really good point.
My favorite XKCD comic.
I will enjoy that. But you made a really good point about how I also agree that Reddit has gotten a lot better. So if you recall my attempt at the casting survey and all that, if you remember that time, every single thread was, we hate memes, there's so many memes, we hate memes, get rid of all the memes. And then if you went a month before, it was, covered in shit posts everywhere. So Reddit kind of went through its angsty teenage drama phase.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And I feel like maybe we're developing that prefrontal cortex a little bit and getting some better judgment going on potentially.
I like it.
That's awesome.
First of all, that I posted the link to that XKCD comic in the chat. If you have not ever read that, please do. It's very important to me personally. I think Reddit has turned a bit of a corner. It's just, again, that we need a better way to communicate with each other as a community. Reddit is not really supposed to be for that.
There are lots of places that you can go and communicate. Like the whole concept of the Dota community is a little weird to me because we are a community in that we all share a hobby, but you wouldn't say like the American football community.
Yeah,
right?
Would. Come on.
Treat it, really?
Yeah, you do. It's a subset.
Football into like one unit
No,
for
American football is a community, and then inside of that
all-
are individual team communities, and inside of that are individual regional communities. It's
like,
a community.
I will tell you, people both inside and outside the business do that constantly. Like this is one of the big things that I may end up, of all things, I may end up actually teaching a sports economics elective class next year. And this is one of the things that a lot of the major leagues have looked at. They want to know how demographically how their fan bases differ from other fan bases. They want to know do their fan bases differ across different teams, especially in baseball, where baseball is really the only one of the major sports where the majority of the revenue is still local. Like, it's a big deal. And no, that is a thing. It's a thing everywhere.
But doesn't exclusivity come into the conversation here? I mean, we grow up really. I'll make the point. Give me a sec. I can understand baseball. I can understand football. It's easier for me to get into. But when you think about the Dota community and you think about Reddit and you think about how kind of elitist a lot of people are, there's an exclusive feel to that Dota community. Sometimes that can be off-putting. So if you talk about the football community, that seems a lot easier to get into than the Dota community.
No. That's
no.
It's a much more a function of where the sports are in their development cycle. Like, Dota is still relatively young.
Well, and the other thing is that, like, football is so big in American culture, American football, that there's just a basic assumption that you understand.
Well, I think we'll move on from this topic. I do want to. This is a thought that I think is a legitimate reason for that sort of exclusivity or the defense of our thing that you have, Reinessa, and that is you don't have to defend being a football fan. I can go anywhere in America and say I love football. I can go anywhere in the world and say I love football. People go, that's cool. If I go to the store and I stood up and I say, I love watching professional video games, there's a subset of the people in that store every single time that will say, that's stupid. And that's
and you know what? Those people are dumb. Those are the same.
But that's what I think. That's where I'm saying.
That argue about whether poker should be on ESPN.
But that's I think why we're so defensive a lot of times.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump into the next one. I think this will be fast. I think you guys probably got a chance to see it. We on Sports Center now, boys. We were like number 5 in the top 10.
Beauty pie.
But like, listen, I want to give props. Whoever explained that play to the producer and got them to put it on top 10, like that was a very dense play. That was somebody posted on Reddit and said, I've got 2,000 games under my belt and I had to watch it 3 times to fully understand it. Like, that was cool. What did you guys think of that?
I think it's it's potentially a marketing ploy by ESPN. We've seen them. Sorry, I was going for polite here. We've seen them take this step into esports. When a few years ago, people would ask me what I wanted to do with esports, and I said I want to be the ESPN esports news anchor. That's what I want. And they looked at me and they said I was crazy. But we've seen they have writers. They're hiring. Coca-Cola is hiring an esports, production manager. That it's this huge thing. So of course ESPN wants to put esports in their top plays, because how else? They have this huge branch of people. They're paying for this. How else do they expose it to the general public? And top 10 plays is a massive way to expose that.
And it's also a big way for them to try and marry their current business model with the new audience that they're hoping to court, right? Like they want to bring in esports fans to watch Sports Center far more than they want Sports Center fans to like esports.
That's exactly that is the single most important point in all of this, is that they're guys, they're asking us to the prom. It ain't the other way around.
Yeah, if you look at
we're not the ones that need to justify ourselves.
It's true.
Like, there's a lot of money to be made out of esports.
Did you catch what the announcer said at the end of the clip? They were dead quiet the whole time, and then one of them goes, from my understanding, these fans are no joke, and moved on to like the next thing. So it sounds like that's the conversation. They were like, we're putting this on your top 10. Don't fuck with these fans, and then move on.
And, I mean, how else do you reach this demographic anyway? I mean, we pirate everything, like literally everything. We're not going to pay for any source like that, and we're constantly online.
TV. Right, that's the thing.
No
it's
TV
ridiculous
at all.
to me that we're being included. It seems like if you want to market esports fans, you should try to do it in the way that esports fans get marketed to. putting Dota on SportsCenter will never make me watch SportsCenter because I've got other ways to get my Dota, and I don't.
But it will make you. It is free advertising for their brand.
You'll follow their Twitter. You'll check their website.
It may make you follow at ESPN Esports, which I have written articles for.
So you should get followed.
On Twitter. That was, by the way, one of the things I was thinking is you guys were saying that. It's like one of the ultimate ironies of my life as someone who's done statistics for a living and who's done sports statistics as a fairly serious hobby. Like I get published on ESPN.com and it's like, it's about Dota.
When I was in an ESPN article, I called my dad and I was like, yeah, your video gamer daughter, not your athletic sons, are the ones who made it in ESPN first.
That's a good
I did too. I had I had like a beer with my dad over Skype when my first article first got published on ESPN. He was very, very amused.
And I think that you hit it. We'll move on. The idea that we don't watch TV. I don't know if you guys watch political debates. My favorite moment of the town halls was Kasich was up and Anderson Cooper was talking to him, and I think it was Kasich who has a 16-year-old daughters, and he said, how do you deal with watching the negative advertisements against your dad? And they just sat back and went, what negative commercials? And he goes, you haven't seen them on TV? And they go, we watch Netflix sometimes or YouTube. And it was like his mind literally, you watch him go, what? So I think that's
as long as we're not talking
about
comparing phallic size, God.
I'm not getting into that right now. Final topic, very brief. UP was banned from the YP was banned from the ESL. The team is no longer allowed to compete in any esport in ESL leagues. That's the YouPorn brand. Right call. Took too long. Don't really care. Any thoughts?
I also can't bring myself to care. Like,
I think so.
ESL is a private company, and they can invite whoever they want to play. And
I think that's
fans
basic.
Respond, then fans will not watch ESL anymore. That's not the case. It's a novelty brand in most games, other than maybe CS:GO.
I would really wonder what would happen with a Valve event, because you still do have to market that. I mean, you see kids at TI. This is a game. Isn't Ramsey's like 15, or there's someone on Empire that's 15?
Yeah.
I don't know. You have a really young audience, and you have to be responsible with that. And so branding comes into a really big question there. And so I think ESL is just making the logical business choice there, is that's not branding that they want to be associated with.
It's just, it blows my mind that people even try to create drama about this. Right. This is not,
there were tournaments
surprising in any way. It's completely straightforward.
There's precedent in every other.
We don't want your jerseys that say YouPorn on our broadcast, because our sponsors won't pay us for ads if we do that.
There were literally tournaments that before YouPorn even made a team said publicly, we won't let this team play. Like, it's obvious because it pre-cursed the actual team. And so YouPorn tried to get around that by just calling it UP.
Well, and you could argue they poked the Badger too.
But you know what it stands for.
Well, they also poked the Badger.
Advertisers care.
Advertisers said you can't be YP, so they came out with a jersey that was like a fuzzed out version of their logo. And I was just like, they made fun of it, and now they're paying the price. It is what it is. All right, that's it. We're pretty much out of time, guys. So if you're planning on using those soapboxes, I built in a potential minute for you to do so. Otherwise, I'm about to announce the score.
All right, I'll take mine. I've got one that's come up a lot. Past couple of days, past couple of months even on this show, when people say that teams, and Gorgon, I know you didn't say this, but when people say that teams aren't trying or don't want to win or aren't putting in their full effort, that frustrates me to no end. After an event, a team might think, wow, I could have done more. But before that event, they work their butts off to make sure everything possible has been done for them to win. They want to be the best. They want to do their best. They want to prove to everyone that they got into this game and they own at it.
Okay. All right. That's good. I mean, it's good information. I believe that a lot of us know that you probably have some insights behind the scenes in some of these top teams.
Hence the frustration.
So you can say that. For those of you who don't know, right now she's sitting in a chair of the coach of Team Secret. So
my branding is off, though.
Nice. Swindles will make you turn that chair around. Anyway, So yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think that's a good insight. And you're right. I've said it on the show before and wondered if teams don't take the challenge as seriously as they should. That's a great point. Anybody else? Last thoughts before we?
I should use mine. I didn't get to bitch about one thing that I do want to touch on, and that's actually debated not doing this and letting Nessa win because I really like her. But anyway, the point being, there's an article on Team Liquid right now about AoE gold and XP bounties that I think it's well worth everybody's time to read. I don't agree with a lot of the article. I think the comparison, it makes a lot of comparisons of Dota now to Dota in the past that I think are badly flawed. I think players players and teams have just gotten a lot better. But the core point of the article is Vici Gaming Reborn, for example, just does not win Star Ladder without those bounty mechanics. And if you look at, for example, just the sheer amount of gold that Miracle gave up when he went after a courier kill in the Radiant top lane, fed to death, he was way ahead. Like VGR are not able to survive the kind of mid lane deficits that Mikasa was facing without those mechanics in the game. And that has profound effects on pubs too. I think it's a necessary evil. I think you need those kinds of mechanics in the game if you're not going to have a surrender option, but we need to recognize those mechanics. It's the same thing that I've been preaching about since I wrote an article on this before 682. Those mechanics have a profound impact on the game. They are affecting pro matches and pro meta in a very big way. It's something that needs to be looked at, that needs to be rebalanced badly.
All right. I know. I think a good point. You actually got the second part of your point in after the clock, so I can't count the point. And the first one was that VG wouldn't have done nearly as well without the bounty gold, right? I think is the moral of our soapbox.
Huh?
Is that what you said? Yeah, that's what you said. All right.
After what point? Okay. What? All right.
Either way, you're at 33 right now. Reinessa is at 34. Gorgon, who
good stuff.
Hold on, I want a soapbox real quick.
Oh.
Can I do this?
All right. This is gonna be I really want to do it. Go.
Does anybody know where I can buy a King R Empire branded jersey? Because I looked forever this weekend and I could not find one. If they aren't making those things, they are missing a massive
They're going to be soon.
After that series, right? Hey, I just want one. Just somebody who is in close with Empire, make them make those so I can buy one, please. That's all I've got to say. That's all I wanted to put in there.
That was a great soapbox. I like that. So make it, honestly, I'll soapbox and say just make esports apparel more accessible in general. I wish there was a place that sold it all, that had women's stuff, that had men's stuff, that had customizable stuff all in one place, because getting esports apparel is a fracking nightmare, to be completely honest with you, for a lot of things. So that said, final scores. Third place, the Wonder Cow coming in at 23 points. Second place, Nahaz, who honestly probably doesn't care because he's got 65 Aegises sheathed behind him right now in that chair at 33 points. And number one on her first appearance on the show, do some really strong insights, Reinessa Dota coming in at 34. So congratulations on your Aegis. That does mean that you get 1 extra minute to talk about anything that you damn well please. What would you like to talk about?
I mean, I feel like I hit it with my soapbox, though. Oh wait, okay. No, I've got another one. I've got another soapbox that goes back to the Reddit one a little bit. Content creators have a miserable life. They work really, really hard to make awesome things for you guys, and they are immensely underappreciated. So people see something and they think, "Wow, this is really cool," and then they move on. They don't like it. They don't retweet it. They don't send it to their friends. People, do your jobs, share it around. Everyone is happier that way. And then you get more content.
Can I break the rules horribly and add one thing to that?
Fuck yeah, if it's about content creator support, yes.
Exactly.
Like everybody bitches about memes on Reddit and about just the stuff that we focus on as a community. Guy, that site is what we make. Literally is what we make it. Our Twitter universe literally is what we make it. Like if you like things, share them. I have actually, this has been my thing that I've been doing recently. Richard Lewis called me an idiot for it, but fuck him.
Seconded.
I literally have started to bother other prominent people in the community. I'm like, look, if you read an article and you think it's cool, even if it raises a point that you think is interesting, go share it. Go post that stuff on Reddit. Go retweet that stuff. You know, I basically told myself that I'm going to post at least 3 or 4 articles a week to Reddit that are by other people, just because if we want stuff on Reddit that's not memes, we need to put it there. And I really do believe that the people who, for whatever God knows reason, I have a following in this community, and you need to use that.
And you need to incentivize.
The system is what it is. Fuck it.
Yeah, you need to incentivize.
Add to that like, if you are complaining about memes on Reddit, just keep this in mind. I wrote an article last week. Like, writing about Dota is literally my job. It is how I make my living. And I wrote an article last week or 2 weeks ago, put it on Reddit, got one upvote, my upvote. I deleted it, and Nahaz put it up there, and it hit the front page. It hit like 8. And it was almost exclusively positive comments. So
and that's the thing. Is that fair? No. Is that right? No. But you know what? I have no idea why anybody likes me, but I'm willing to. You know what? I'm willing to work the system. F it.
You know what? And
I can do that. If you care about having content available to you on that specific social hub, then you've got to put in the work to sort through.
Well, and I would also posture this is, if you know someone in the scene, Nahaz, who has influence, or somebody else, even I don't have a lot, but whatever I have, if you tweet me articles that you guys find, if you send stuff to me, if you're a writer who's proud of something and you're willing to put it under scrutiny, send it to us, tweet it at us, tell us it's out there.
I will always support.
We'll read it, we'll look at it. If we hate it, we'll say we hate it, but that's the risk you have to take. So let us know. See something, say something, I think is what we need to start working with in terms of promoting content. That said, that's all the time that we have for the show. No more additional soapboxes. No more saying extra things. The winner is Reinessa. Congratulations, guys. A big shout out to our sponsors again, Asus, Republic of Gamers, Razors, and Pro-Built Systems. Without them, the show would not exist. And honestly, I want to take one small second here before I have them do their thank yous. No, I'll do it afterwards. Guys, I want you to give your shout outs, thank yous, whatever you need to say. Let's go ahead and do it. We'll start with third place and work our way back to first. Gorgon, last thoughts?
Just guys, if you want to swing by Twitter at The Wonder Cow, you can find updates on my writing, where I do literally daily narrative posts on pvplive.com. And I write for Unicorn and sometimes join Dota, The Score, Dota Buff, other places like that.
Nahaz, thoughts?
At Nahaz Dota on Twitter. It says it right on the screen. Please do check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Nahaz. I do a video series called Stats Don't Lie every week. I write some stuff for ESPN. Going to be writing some stuff other places now. And shout out to Reinessa because she effing won.
Reinessa, last thoughts, shout outs, etc.?
Okay, well, I got to give a huge shout out to literally my entire freaking stream, who are all European and stayed up and watched and came and hung out. That was really awesome.
Right.
Thanks for having me on. First time. That was great. Yeah, my Twitter is up on the screen. I also have a YouTube, although that's less esporty and more stream based. So, that's up to you guys yourself. But yeah, I'm just going to say huge shout out to the community in general. I'm pretty new to it and it's been amazing. So I love this place, and I'm really glad it's here.
We're going to get bigger. We're going to get better, guys. I will say this. Keep an eye out for some new projects on the way. I am chatting directly with Twitch about finding new ways to bring content creators to public perception. Nahaz, Reinessa, I've talked to you both about that. It's in the works. There's actually discussion being had. We're moving forward. So, guys, look for some new projects coming out soon. And finally, and I want to leave with this thought, my son was in the hospital this weekend. It was a very difficult time for me and my family. And honestly, some of the greatest support that I had came out of this community. The tweets, the messages, the Skype messages, just all of the stuff, the outpouring of love from people in the Dota community to help us get through that was meaningful. I showed my wife every single tweet, and they meant a ton to her. So thank you guys. I'm going to end it here before I get emotional on stream, because that's a meme I don't want to have to deal with for the rest of my life. But it was a very tough time, and it was made significantly better by you guys and your support. Thank you so much for that. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you soon. I believe we'll have a show next week, and maybe Gorgon and I will come to you live all the way from DreamHack Austin the week after. That said, thanks for watching, and as always, Toffee's out.